1996. What an interesting year. It started off with the worst snowstorm we've ever seen in our lifetime, and then we had Independence Day as the #1 movie in theaters. But then we had like everyone, including your parents, doing the Macarena. It was also the year Rurouni Kenshin debuted. And 1996 was the year the Nintendo 64 debuted in North America. Well, there's conflicting interests on the Nintendo 64. A lot of people love it. It's their favorite game system of all time. There's also a lot of old school people who are just like, man, what a failure it was. I mean, it wasn't a failure by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure it wasn't what a lot of people were used to who grew up with classic video games, and now here is Nintendo 64. But the launch of it in 96 was a little rough. The game system only launched with 2 games, and only 8 games total came out in 1996. Even though there's only 8 games, you're not allowed to skip ahead because your favorite game might be coming up, and you need to let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. Let's check out all 8 games that debuted for the Nintendo 64 in its debut in 1996.
Hello!
From that moment, Charles Martinet's Mario's voice is what stabilized that voice for being Mario for the rest of time. It really is. Now, I spent far more time on this title screen than I should have when I first played this game. Maybe you did too. Now, Mario 64 with the Nintendo 64 ruffled a few feathers for its time because when you bought a Nintendo, for the most part, it came with Super Mario Bros. You bought a Super Nintendo, it came with Super Mario World. So you would have figured the Nintendo 64 would have come with Mario 64. It didn't. Nintendo 64 didn't come with any game, so if you wanted to play something, you had to pay separate. The good news is, Mario 64 is an awesome, awesome, awesome game. It put Mario in a 3D landscape. I remember seeing photos of this in magazines, and I was just like, man, I can't wrap my head around how it works. Like, do you still move left and right and you can move forward and everything moves with you? I couldn't figure it out. I just couldn't fathom what it would look like until I saw it being played at a pre-release thing at a local Blockbuster. Even though the controller was a little weird, when I started using the analog, where if I moved it a little bit, he would walk. If I moved it more, he would run. Oh man, I was like, okay, this can work. This can work. I loved the fact that this game gave you reason to go back and play through the same levels. There's plenty of opportunities to grab your stars, and then plenty of reason to go back and explore some more. Maybe discover some new stars, or discover some new secrets. Certain enemies and items, and just other elements of what we have in Mario games today all stemmed from Super Mario 64. There's a reason a lot of people consider Super Mario 64 as their favorite Mario game of all time. I don't blame them. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I also don't blame them. It's an excellent game. To me, it's still fun to play today. Question I have is, at the very beginning, when you talk to your Lakitu, who says, hey, I'm gonna be your camera guy, who's the one controlling the camera in the first little bit? The world may never know. The second launch game for the Nintendo 64 was Pilotwing 64. Pilotwing 64, admittedly, I was far more interested in than Super Mario 64, just because I was such a big fan of Pilotwings for the Super Nintendo. You know, I'll never understand why they didn't just call this guy Ness. I mean, he looks just like him from Nintendo Power. This game features a few different elements of gameplay, just for fun. You got your hang gliding, which has you floating around a little bit. You know, you can find these little thermal currents. I like the fact that the thermal currents were more environmental. In the Super Nintendo one, it was a little strange to, I mean, it just looked like puffs of smoke and you just have to hope that you're hitting the right target. This one made it a little bit easier for you, I think. And hang gliding to me on this one is far more fun than the Super Nintendo hang gliding one. I didn't care for the Super Nintendo hang gliding thing at all. The best thing, of course, without a doubt, had to have been the Rocket Pack. In different elements on the Rocket Pack too, you can hover with your trigger buttons and everything, or you can, you know, go faster, go slower. And now that we're in 3D polygons and not just flat land like the Super Nintendo version was, you had like this whole area that you could explore. I thought it was wonderful. I loved it. You do have a limited amount of gasoline, so I mean, you can't just be doing that all the time, but you know, still a lot of fun to check out. And then in lieu of the light plane, you have the gyrocopter. And I was like, oh, I like the light plane. But the gyrocopter, you know, maybe a little bit better because it controls kind of like an airplane, I guess. But then it has other things you can do. There's other missions later on too where you have to like destroy targets and all that too. So that's one of the things that made this game interesting. Not just the different areas you could travel to, or not just the different areas that you had challenges in. I liked the fact that different levels might have alternate missions. Like with the hang glider, you know, maybe you have to like get to a certain place in a certain amount of time. There also might be ones where you have to like take a picture. You can actually go in and go to camera mode and take a picture of whatever they want you to take a picture of. It's kind of fun. After waiting a little while, we had Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Mortal Kombat Trilogy coming to the Nintendo 64. Mortal Kombat, another one of those, a lot of people have a lot of opinions on it. I'm not great at it, so I don't enjoy it as much as most other people enjoy Mortal Kombat. I think a lot of people purchased this game just because I was like, oh my god, finally, a third game for the Nintendo 64. It's not that the game's terrible, it's just that trying to control this game with your Nintendo 64 controller doesn't make it a very optimal experience. Like they didn't have a great arcade controller yet, for the Nintendo 64. So cool to see, nice lineup, you know. It's Mortal Kombat, you know, one of the biggest games for its time. But just combining Mortal Kombat, putting it on a Nintendo system, I know they've kind of got past the, yeah, we can do blood and stuff like that now. However, just trying to play this game with that Nintendo controller, not great. I know people love this game, it's just not for me. But it did come out in 1996, so we gotta talk about it. Hey, and trust me, if you loved Mortal Kombat, you let me know in the comments. Now this was a game I was looking forward to with the water mechanics of Wave Race 64. Wave Race 64. It was just cool because I hadn't really seen water mechanics like this yet. So you combine this to kind of a decent racing game. You know, as we're going around the tracks, you have to go, you know, either on the left side or the right side of some of these beacon things. What's funny is I was super interested in this because of the water mechanics, and the water mechanics is also what prevents me from being any good at this game, because I can never use it to my advantage. But still looked very cool for its time. I like the, you know, the different tracks and the different, you know, levels and stuff like that too. There's also a stunt course you can do, and it's kind of a fun experience. Still a decent racing game. You got the multiplayer going on with this as well. It's Wave Race 64. It's one of those, it's like as soon as it came out, you had to grab it. And I'm glad I did. Well, we got the licensing game with Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey. Did you grab this too just because it was one of the few games available for its time? I don't know a lot about hockey. But I do know that this game's actually pretty decent. When it comes to hockey games, when it comes to hockey video games, it's actually not so bad. Nice controls, fast action, arcade-paced, just, you know, goal after goal, or, you know, something like that. It's just you just keep going, you just keep having fun, you just keep playing. Doesn't have the largest lineup of teams you can choose from, but it has enough. And easy to control, easy to figure out, even if you're not the biggest hockey fan. This one actually played pretty well, I thought. Yeah, believe it or not, it's like a hockey game I didn't mind. We hit 130,000 subscribers! If that's you, drop me an email and leave a comment. I'm gonna be sending something your way. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you're subscribed. When we hit our next goal, I'll do another giveaway. Got our next fighting game with Killer Instinct Gold, and I like this one a little bit more than Mortal Kombat. I'm still not very good at it. And fighting games seem to have kind of their gimmicks, if you would. Street Fighter 2, it's all about the throwing fireballs and doing your special moves and all that. With Mortal Kombat, yeah, a little bit of that, but it also has the fatalities involved too. To me, Killer Instinct was all about getting those multi-hit combos. You just get those massive combos, big-time combos. You ever go to a place like a Safeway grocery store where they have like the Chinese food section and you ask for a Supreme Combo in the voice of a Killer Instinct, so you ask for a Supreme Combo or something like that? You ever do that? Oh, just me? Okay. Now the fun of this game, I mean, when in doubt, button mash. You might be doing pretty good if you button mash. I mean, yeah, of course this game has some special maneuvers too, but so much of this game is just trying to get those huge combos, those big combos that they can't break, that they can't avoid. That's what makes this game pretty awesome. And when you're stuck in that, man, it's embarrassing. It happens to me all the time. I mean, Killer Instinct, it's a fun to check out, of course, and man, it's pretty cool. I may not be great at it, but I still have fun playing it. The game a lot of people were looking forward to with the Nintendo 64 was Cruisin USA. What a fun arcade game this was, an arcade-style racer. And what I mean by arcade-style racer is it's just over the top. You're not really worried about physics so much, or realism, like in a Gran Turismo. In something like this, you're just looking for just insane chaos, driving as fast as you can. You know, like when you hit a car, it's completely unrealistic of what would happen if you hit a car, but maybe that's what makes it fun too. The Cruisin series, beloved by many. Nice that it has, like, you know, like the 3D polygons, but then also, you know, just how everything else looks in this. So, you know, you're going up and down the hills and everything like that. Or you just have, you know, the trees on the side, which are more like just, you know, static photos that kind of follow you and stuff like that. You're just going for a drive, buddy. You're just going for a drive, and lots of scenery in this game too, lots of levels to unlock. Another one you can do multiplayer on, so you and a friend can have some fun with this one. Cruisin' Blast. I think that for its time especially, a must-have for sure. The game I was really looking forward to checking out, Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, puts you in Star Wars. Now along the way, since Star Wars has been around since literally 1977, we've had Star Wars video games. We had the vector-based arcade game, the Atari games, the Nintendo games. You know, the Super Nintendo games were actually pretty decent, but this was the Star Wars game I was looking forward to, because it puts you into the action. I mean, the very first mission you do, the very first thing is you're on Hoth. And, you know, you're doing the snow battle and stuff like that, where you're shooting down, you know, the enemy guys. Like, oh my god, when you could wrap up, you can use your tow rope to wrap up the dudes and they fall on their face and all that, just like in the movie. Man, it's so awesome. And it gives you a couple of different camera views too, like you can go inside the cockpit to maybe make you aim better. You can do behind the view, you can do the cinematic, which is super confusing, but still looks kind of cool. And then when you're on foot too, and this is when it turns into like a shooter style game, where you're running around and you're killing the other enemies, the snow troopers, the stormtroopers, whatever the missions happen to be at the time. Super, super fun. It's a little dated today. When you try playing this game today, the controls don't move like what controls you're used to now from back then, since this game only has one analog and then it has those weird C buttons and stuff like that, but you can still kind of figure it out, and there's a lot of aim assist. There's a ton of aim assist on this game, so you don't have to necessarily be facing them to shoot them. As long as you're shooting kind of near them, you hit the target more often than not, so it's not so bad on this game, but still fun to explore, fun to play. I still like play. I go back to this game every once in a while. I know it's a little dated, but still gotta love Shadows of the Empire. And we'll see you again in another year. Make sure you're subscribed. There's always new videos coming up.